Hello everybody and welcome to an extremely special top 5 board gaming video. Why is this one so special? Well, today is my 100th board gaming video. That's right, it has been nearly 4 years of my making these and we are finally at the big 100. Now that doesn't include like my board game reviews and stuff like that I started a while ago, but it doesn't really matter. We're just going by like Street Fighter or Microsoft Windows numbering. You know, we're sort of approximating. But either way, it has been an absolutely incredible journey. I have learned a great deal. I've gotten a lot of really cool games. I have gotten some amazing suggestions from you guys, both on games to play as well as ways to improve my channel for you. And it's been absolutely incredible. I am so grateful to all of you for sticking by me and watching all my crazy videos, as well as giving me new advice and just chatting with me randomly in the comments. You guys know how much I appreciate that and how much I love hearing from you. That said, today's category is one that sort of parallels the entire idea of today, and that is we will be talking about games that have some sort of a character progression. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I did a video quite a while ago where I talked about roles that matter. That is to say, when you pick a role, then it makes a difference in your character. So for example, instead of having copy-pasted sort of characters that just mean nothing and just is sort of like a face and a name, in that case it was a face, a name, and some kind of special ability. Today we are going to be talking about more than that, where as you play the game you get better and better and better. We're talking about role-playing games in the form of board games, essentially. And again, it sort of parallels my entire journey here, making my videos on my channel for you guys. Again, hearing what you guys have to say and all of that great stuff. So I'm extremely excited to talk to you guys about it, but more so, I would love to hear what you guys have to say, not only about the category, but just in general. What do you think about it? Do you like this type of gameplay? And, or you can just say hi to me too. It's always great to hear from you, as you guys know. But that said, we're going to get started with my number 5. At number 5, I've got a game that gives a sort of unique twist to a very classic horror genre type thing. The game itself is Dead of Winter. Now in this game, the reason I picked it for this list is because you're sort of building up your own personal posse. Now everybody starts off with a single person, and then you can sort of recruit other people to come and help you out, and they'll be able to do other things alongside you. Now that said, it's lower on the list because as far as actual character progression, you don't have too much. I mean, you're going to be getting items and things like that, but mostly it's about the fact that you're getting other characters that are sort of like your underlings. The other major part for the purposes of this video is the crossroads mechanic. For those of you who don't know, the way this works is the person who just went, the person to your right, I believe it might be the person to your left, picks up a card and just looks at it. And if some specific condition is met, then an event occurs and you have to make a choice. You either continue on and potentially get injured or whatever, or typically it's going to be you just have to go back to where you were coming from. There's a huge variation in what it can be and all that kind of stuff, but for the purposes of role-playing and the RPG elements, that aspect alone is huge for me. You guys know that I grew up playing D&D and all those types of games, and with Dead of Winter it puts a very interesting, unique spin on it. On top of that, in this game, everybody also has a secret objective card. It's one of those games where even if everybody wins, you only actually win if you completed your personal objective. The biggest thing with that, as far as this list is concerned, is the fact that you have the potential for a betrayer, somebody who is actively trying to work against the group, and their goal is to make the group fail on their particular survival mission. So you've got a lot of really cool things going on with it. Again, the biggest thing is that you have a lot of variety with the group that you can make, and it makes me think of games like Final Fantasy and stuff like that, where you got to try to balance out the strengths and weaknesses of your own personal group that you're building up, and the other players, granted it's all cooperative, have their own personal strengths and weaknesses. It's really cool, it's tremendously fun, but like I said, not as in-depth in terms of actually moving forward and progressing a particular character. But either way, Dead of Winter is my number 5. At number 4, I've got a game that I have talked about quite a bit in this context, and it might actually surprise you that it's relatively low on the list. The game itself is D&D. Now in this case, this is sort of the catch-all for any of the D&D tile placing games. I personally have The Legend of Drizzt, but there's also the Castle Ravenloft and Wrath of Ashelin. I can never pronounce the dragon's name, but either way, those are the 3 major ones that I know of off the top of my head anyway. And the thing is that this game really speaks to me in the sense of, again, I love D&D, and effectively 4th edition D&D was translated directly to make these board games. So this has very much that tabletop RPG feel, where as you level up, you're gaining experience and you gain new abilities. So effectively in this game, the way it works is you got your character card and you flip it over and you gain new abilities, you have higher HP and all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool. It's a relatively minor character progression, but at the same time, you do still have something that's very real and very tangible. Now, the biggest thing for this game, compared to a lot of the other games here, is the fact that it's not very continuous. You know, you still have a single sit-down session where you sit down, you play your character, maybe you level up, maybe you don't, and you just sort of go through it. It's not a bad thing by any means, but when I think character development, I think old school classic D&D, where you're talking about a campaign that takes place over the course of dozens of sessions. And so you're sitting there and playing and playing and playing all the time, and you really get attached to your character. Now in this, you can still get attached to your character, you can still love a particular character and how they work, you can make them your own to a certain extent. But again, you do have much more limited scope with a board game like this compared to playing actual D&D. Even so, for the purpose of this video, it works very, very well. It does very much have that D&D feel, and that is why it is my number 4. At number 3, I've got another one of my favorite classic fantasy RPG board games that I have loved ever since the first time I played it. The game itself is Talisman. Now this game, the biggest thing for this, literally and figuratively, are the expansions. I personally do not own any, but the way that they work is you actually have expansions that add on to each corner of the board. So this game becomes a huge sprawling metropolis essentially on the table. However, even with the base game, you have a tremendous amount of character development going on. The way that it works is that as you gain experience and you gain levels, then just like in a more traditional tabletop RPG, you're actually selecting individual traits and stats that you bump up. So you can increase your strength, you can increase your HP, you can increase your magic ability, all of that kind of thing. And you just gradually bump them up. So very, very much, more so than the D&D tile placement games, you have a lot more control over the direction that your character takes. And that is really why I love this game. That said, it is relatively confined. I mean, you're talking about a singular board, you're essentially going around and around and around, and eventually the idea is that you're gradually going more and more inside, because the end goal is to get the crown that's in the center of the board, so to speak. And in order to do that, you have to have a very strong character. So that means you're collecting items, you're gaining experience to increase your stats, all of this kind of stuff. It's absolutely amazing, and again, a very classic fantasy RPG feeling. The base game has the very standard D&D RPG type of archetypes for the characters. So you've got like the rogue and the wizard, the barbarian, people like that. I don't remember the exact names off the top of my head, but it's, those types of things that you see all the time. It's not a bad thing by any means, it's just the nature of the game. And again, that's part of why I really love it, because it does bring me that nostalgia of these very classic RPGs and tabletop dice rolling and all that kind of stuff. In this game, you do have dice rolling as well. More so it's about the cards and stuff though. And again, with the expansions, you add so much more. It's absolutely insane. But for all of those reasons, Talisman is my number 3. Now for this particular list, both number 2 and number 1, I do not own them. However, they are wonderful games that really exemplify the ideas that I wanted to express in this particular video. At number 2, we have Descent. Now I can't remember if it's Journeys into the Dark or Journeys into Darkness, it's something along those lines. But it's one of these huge, sprawling, tile placement RPG games. Now I have only played the actual full game a few times because it is so ridiculously huge. Descent is insane. But the thing is, if you're talking about a very classic tabletop D&D feel, you really can't beat Descent, and there is one very simple reason for it. The fact is, you have a GM. You have somebody that all of the players are going up against, and it's similar to like the third act of like Betrayal at House on the Hill and things of that nature, where you have somebody that everybody knows is actively working against you. Or what's it called? Fury of Dracula is another one of my personal favorites, where you have that sort of all against one type of mentality. In Descent, though, it combines a lot of the great aspects for, say, the D&D tile placement games with the character progression aspects of Talisman, and it sort of mashes them together. You've got the tile exploration, you've got the items that you get from the cards, you've got the individual character archetypes that you are gradually leveling up and gaining new skills and abilities and getting new traits and all that kind of stuff. Plus, you've got the GM as well, and on top of all of that, you are able to a great extent actually to save your progress and go again and again and again, bringing back that feeling of going through the individual sessions and building through a full campaign. It's an absolutely amazing game. It's got a ridiculous number of expansions. I personally have never played with any of the expansions. I have only played the base game, and like I said, I've only played the base game fully through a couple of times because it's simply so ridiculously big. But as far as exemplifying what this video is about, where we're talking about character progression and development and all that kind of thing, you really become attached to your character. That character is your character. More often than not, we had to end up skipping sessions because so-and-so was not able to show up, and we really need them for the healing or whatever it happened to be. And it's, again, it's that kind of feeling that I love to have. So because of all that, Descent is my number 2. At number 1 for this list, I actually have a game that I have been bragging about for months and months and months. But the fact is, I have to give credit where credit is due to Pandemic Legacy. That's right, Pandemic Legacy is my number 1 game for character development. And the simple reason is because it is a campaign. Like, seriously, it is a campaign. You have your character, you name your character, you keep that character, your characters can die, they can be injured, all sorts of crazy stuff. It is a role-playing game. That's all there is to it. It might not seem like it on the surface, it may not feel like it, but you are playing a campaign in a tabletop role-playing game. That is really what it is. The only big difference is that you are effectively playing against an AI. You're playing against the game itself, and it's got all of these little doors and windows and stuff programmed that you're gradually opening up and that kind of thing. Now, the thing I really love about Pandemic Legacy, now, to start off with, I'm not going to spoil anything about what actually happens, so don't worry. But the thing I love about the way it works is that you have a very gradual progression through a frankly distinct and pretty interesting story. I really enjoy it. The way it works is you're going through an entire year month by month. So you're going from January to December, you're unlocking specific objectives, and you have to complete X number of objectives in order to say you successfully complete that particular month. If you have played regular Pandemic, Pandemic Legacy is very, very similar just in terms of how it works mechanically. It does add weird twists and turns and throws wrenches into it and all that kind of kind of stuff, which is the point of Legacy. The entire premise behind the game is that you have a perpetually changing and everlasting alterations to the game itself, as well, again, as the characters. And, as we always say, the greatest and most powerful character in the whole game is Medic McMedicface. That is right. I am currently playing a game as Medic McMedicface, the infamous medic. And again, this is the great thing about the game. It is so much fun. And yeah, I hate to say that because I don't think it should be #1 on Board Game Geek, but it still is. The fact remains, though, that it is a well-designed game, it is fun, and it is Pandemic made into an RPG. So it's kind of like, for me personally. Like, those are two of my favorite things in the entire universe. I absolutely love science, and I love role-playing games. So it's like, come on. So again, I do enjoy it to an extent. I do like the fact that you've got this wonderful character progression and character development over the course of time. Just like with Descent, though, we do end up having problems with, like, so-and-so can't make it, so we're not able to play and all that kind of stuff. But if you can get past that, it really is a good, solid game, but it takes a sincere commitment to actually go through and actually play through the entire thing. So, still not #1 on Board Game Geek in my personal opinion. However, it is my #1 character development and progression game, Pandemic Legacy. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for me on this, my 100th board gaming video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Once again, thank you so much for not only watching this video, but for supporting me throughout this nearly 4 years of my channel's activity and making all my weird, wacky videos, giving me comments and suggestions, and just randomly chatting with me through the comments as well. It's so much fun. You guys know I love hearing from you, and I love interacting with you. It's one of the biggest reasons why I started this channel in the first place, so that I could sort of put myself out there and talk and chat and all that kind of stuff. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. I hope that you like seeing my face on occasion at least and all that good stuff. However, with that, I would like to say once again, I do hope that you enjoyed this video. Please give me any and all feedback that you want in the comments below. Any other games that fit into this category, any other categories that you'd like to see me talk about even, all of that great stuff. But with that, thank you so much for an absolutely incredible 4 years, and I hope to be seeing you guys for many years ahead. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.